Hello, everybody, and welcome back for week number 9 of the USFL season. I'm going to be your host today, Sean PSU Fans 2 Newsham. Joining me per usual is Alex Fearmyturtle Hardin. Alex, how is it going on this lovely Thursday morning?
Going good. Coming off a pretty chalk-filled USFL week, going into week 9. Only one of these games, quote unquote, matter in terms of actual standing. So it's interesting how the league's kind of played out with 3 1-7 teams, and then a pretty clear top tier, and then only a couple middle teams like Tampa Bay, New Orleans, who play each other this week. So be interesting. 2 teams in each division go to the playoffs, so only one of these games kind of matter towards that, and we'll get into that. But yeah, doing pretty good. Getting close to wrapping up the regular season. So we'll see if teams bench guys because the playoffs are upcoming, or teams out of contention just rotate even heavier. So be interesting to see.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit since it's different than other leagues. So my viewpoint on things is if a player is active, he's going to be in a normal role that he would have, you would think, because they only have so many players that can be active in a game compared to that of the NFL or college football. So what's your viewpoint on these games that maybe don't matter as much here towards the end of the season?
I mean, a lot of these teams that are bad and it doesn't matter, they've been rotating heavily, and there's been a lot of variance in terms of snaps anyway. So I think that would just continue even more. They did expand the rosters, which helps a little bit, but you get into situations where you're thin in a position due to an injury, like you really don't have anyone else to play. Like we'll get into New Jersey a bit at running back. Trey Williams got a bit banged up. So if he's out, like they literally just have like Darius Victor and maybe one other guy, like they're going to have to play. There's not, like you said, their rosters aren't big enough just to sit starters for a whole week. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a situation where I do think you maybe would see a little bit more rotation. Maybe at running back, you'll see the backup getting more carries than he normally would. But overall, if the guy's active in the USFL, I think he's pretty much going to play pretty normally. So keep that in mind. Now, I will say I could see them. Do you see the potential where teams just use their practice squad and sort of like rotate players in from the practice squad to play?
I mean, I could see anything in this league. But I mean, the coaches want to win. The players want to be on the field. They don't want to win a USFL championship. They want to put good tape on the field to get opportunities at the next level. I think most of them. So I think guys are going to want to play, and if it's left up to them, they're going to get on the field. So yeah, we'll see. And the difficult part with that is that we don't know for sure who the inactives are until like an hour before kickoff. So we get the injury report. Guys who have been listed as full go have been inactive. Guys who are questionable have been active and then played or not played. So it's just kind of all over the place.
People that were ruled inactive have played.
Yeah, I mean, they have gotten a little bit better with the inactive list an hour before kick with each game. That's helped a bit, but it's still, there's a lot of unknowns going into many of the kickoffs.
For sure. All right, starting at the quarterback situation. We still have a clear top end. We saw Case Cookis go absolutely bonkers last week and put up about 46 points, I believe. We saw him take off and have an 80-yard touchdown run, which Alex and I were talking about before the show today. It was a surprising 80-yard touchdown run. Wasn't exactly the person you'd expect to rip that off.
It was the slowest 80-yard touchdown run I think I've probably ever seen, but congratulations to Mr. Cookis for breaking the slate.
It was a solid run where I will say, so you know what was actually impressive on that is the receiver was actually blocking 40 yards downfield, because you see that so often where that receiver just doesn't block the guy and then they get tackled. Yeah, he made sure that lane was clear, so kudos to him.
He needed every block that he could get.
He did. But, he needed every single one of those blocks. The real part that helped was the 3 guys in the middle of the field that ran into each other to start taking themselves out of the play.
Yeah, great awareness there. Yeah.
Yeah, looking at quarterback, we saw things that were of interest last week where Paxton Lynch did play instead of Love. We did see Magoo come in and play, but he actually got hurt. And other than that, it was pretty much the same. I guess the only other thing was DeAndre Johnson did not play, but he is available. So we are not sure whether or not he'll play. But again, you have a quarterback that is used for his rushing ability, and he has an ankle injury, so it may not be used as well. So the only thing I would say that is a little bit surprising here is that Jamar Smith is actually projected more points here than Jordan Tom. And why don't you break that down, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, it's more of just the matchup. Birmingham, they're pretty large favorites here against Houston, who's been dreadful. And the New Orleans Tampa Bay game is projected to be much closer. Tamu's rush share, it's been all over the place. He's had games over 30% rush share and then a lot of games under 15%. So he does have an upside. It's just not going to be fully captured in that mean projection. But I do think Tamu is certainly in play in the quote unquote game that actually matters this week. Could certainly see a situation where Birmingham just is playing from ahead and just feeding the ball to Bo Scarborough and CJ Marable like 35 times, and Jamar's not needed. So, yeah, the Jamar projection might be a touch high to go through and look at the run pass splits there, and might have to shade a bit more towards rush for Birmingham, given that they're like 13-point favorites.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so looking at quarterbacks for me, obviously Cookus is the clear cash option. I still think he's a better option realistically than Tamu, but it's probably those two and then Jamar Smith. The only person that I think is a solid GPP option is Roland Rivers. However, you are worried that Roland Rivers probably does not have the longest leash. So what's your thoughts on the Rivers situation?
Yeah, he's certainly fine for tournaments. And the problem is like their wide receiver core, it's been kind of all over the place. So it's hard to kind of nail down where you want to stack with him, but certainly he can run a little bit. I could see that game going back and forth a bit. But he certainly doesn't have the longest leash. I could see Vadley getting rotated in there. But I mean, the interesting thing at quarterback, this is going to probably be the 1 week where you legitimately have a guy that's like 40 to 50% owned in Cookus. While he probably deserves to be the highest owned, that might be a bit outsized based on like just this probability of being the top scoring quarterback. So in tournaments, I mean, I agree with you. Cookus is the clear cash option, but in tournaments, like you certainly want to probably be under the field on him.
For sure. So looking at the rest of the quarterbacks, is there anyone else that you think is viable in any format?
I think Sloter's viable. I mean, I have concerns that he might get pulled too. He coming off a 3 interception game, but I mean, um, we've seen bigger games from him, like maybe a situation where Tampa Bay goes up early and they're playing from behind. We've seen New Orleans squeeze off a lot of plays this year. So, and there's some pretty clear stacking partners with like Sloter and then Adams and Dixon, Canella. So I could see like Sloter doubles being pretty interesting in the larger field tournament.
For sure. All right, moving to the running back situation. We saw last week Matt Colburn got fed the ball. He was the only one realistically that was even involved in the game. Terry had a very small workload for them. Other things that were of note from last week, Reggie Corbin got injured really early, did not play very much in that game. Juwan Washington, BJ Evans split pretty evenly down the middle. There were some other splits as well, like Jordan Ellis and Anthony Jones situation. Another thing that was of interest that we'll have to wait and see was Mark Thompson missed last week, and we saw not Dalen Dawkins come in. We saw Devwall Whaley be the lead back for them, as you see him popping here. That info and that projection is going to be heavily dependent on what the situation is with Mark Thompson later in the week. So why don't we talk at the top end of running backs? For me, Colburn is clearly the top guy, even ahead of Darius Victor. Victor had a massive game last week, but the workload is not there to fully support it long term, I think. So what's your thoughts on the top two guys and the running back situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a cash perspective that you have to play Colburn and Victor. I agree with you that Victor, like he's running pretty hot on touchdowns. However, it's clear that their offense is pretty solid and he's going to get the ball near the goal line. Also, Trey Williams got banged up a little bit. So just knowing all those factors and that he's going to be highly owned, like you probably don't want to get buried by Victor in cash games because he's going to be extremely high owned. Colburn, yeah, this has been a trend the last few weeks. Like he's just getting fed. He's involved in a lot of facets of their offense. And Terry only played like 2% of the snaps. I'm assuming that he'll get scaled up some if he's more healthy. But the other interesting thing is Chris Rowland, their slot guy who's been playing backup. He actually got some backfield snaps and some carries to go along with a few targets. So he's kind of interesting if they're trying to manage Colburn's workload, given that Philly's already clinched a playoff position. But still, that doesn't get me off Colburn at all. I think he's clearly the top running back, and I don't think we've had an ownership projection above 60% for any running backs this year, but I think he's probably going to be that this week.
Sure.
And we'll have to get information on Mark Thompson for sure. Like Whaley he's a fine play if Thompson's out, but if Thompson's in, like I'm probably not playing anyone in that Houston backfield.
For sure. Looking a little bit more about the Darius Victor situation. So Trey Williams got banged up last week. If he were to miss or get sort of downgraded, would that move Darius Victor to the top running back for you?
Yeah, probably. We'd have to scan through their roster to see who they even have that could kind of fill in that Trey Williams role. I know they were really thin for most of the year. They've only had 2 running backs. So I have to check their practice squad to see if they even have any viable options. Obviously, a lot of these teams are just bringing guys off the street as needed. So I'm assuming if Trey Williams' injury is serious enough that he's in doubt to miss, they'll have another running back to kind of fill some of that role. But yeah, certainly probably Victor would gain a few projection points there.
For sure. Looking at Pittsburgh, we saw Garrett Groshek and Mondre London. They continue to split the workload and are just not very good. But at 3.7K, Groshek's going to at least get work. So there's probably worse plays you can make in that perspective. Is there any other running backs that you want to touch on here at all?
I mean, Garrett Groshek just made me so sad this season. Like I thought this actually like a league where he could actually produce in. We saw him in a role in Wisconsin where he would get carries, get targets out of the backfield. He had some big games and some Big Ten games. So I had some high expectations for Groshek being a fun player in this league, but the team is just so bad. Nobody they're putting back there is really producing. So I'm not going to put it all on him. It's just Pittsburgh's a total disaster, especially at running back.
Not shocking with the coaching that they have at all that they are that disaster. All right, moving over to the receiver situation. We saw Turpin score a touchdown last week. Again, the snap count is not there for him per se, but when he's on the field, there are plays designed specifically for him. The real standout last week was Marlon Williams to me. He had 7 for 109 on 12 targets. Victor Bolden missed the game, so the real beneficiary there was Marlon Williams coming back from his injury. So why don't you talk a little bit about Turpin and Marlon Williams here at the top?
Yeah, so Turpin was part of that like chalk brigade that kind of smashed last week. I mean, it's tough playing somebody who's that expensive and only playing like 50% of the snaps, but it's pretty clear when he's in the game, they're game planning to give him touches. So certainly viable. He'll probably be the highest owned wide receiver outside of Marlon Williams, who, if Victor Bolden comes back, which I kind of doubt that he does, he'll certainly take a hit. But it was pretty clear last week that they were going to feed him. I mean, the interesting thing going into last week is that we just didn't know if Marlon Williams was going to play coming back from injury. He was activated, but that hasn't really mean much this season. So we had a pretty tame projection on him. But seeing what he did last week, his usage and role, like, he's pretty clearly one of the top wide receivers at only 6.1. The Philly wide receivers are interesting because we know that they're going to throw the ball a decent amount, but they have 4 receivers who are kind of viable to play. So it's tough to kind of pick 1 or 2 because the production's been so spread. But Sewell has been better as of late. He's a big body, so I think he does have a bit of touchdown equity. So I like him some. And then going to like New Orleans, Jonathan Adams is somebody who has a massive ceiling. I think he tends to get overplayed. He's probably been higher owned than our ownership projection every week. So I have to take a look at this 10%. He's probably going to come in higher, but he's someone I think has a massive ceiling. I like him a lot this week in tournaments.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, the person for me that stands out a little bit more outside of Turpin and Marlins is also Lance Lenoir. Lance Lenoir really got some volume last week, but I tend to agree with you on Adams. He's a guy that does have a massive upside situation that can come in. Is there any other receivers maybe a little bit further down the list that are of interest to you?
Yeah, I like the New Jersey guys, Alonzo Moore and Jamon Moore, if you're fading Turpin. Like Alonzo Moore has been getting a lot of targets down the field. We've seen him catch a long touchdown. Jamon Moore seems to be healthier and getting more integrated. And like the Moores are the ones playing all the snaps, and Turpin's the one rotating in, getting a lot of targets near the line of scrimmage. So Turpin's clearly your volume guy and guaranteed touches, but I think both of the Moores have bigger plays in them with fewer opportunities.
For sure. Yeah, it's a situation where, I mean, this is definitely the spot where you're going to make your differentials. Quarterback, you know pretty much who the guys are that are likely going to be the top scorers at quarterback. And then the running backs, there's clearly a top level. I will say that could be a bit different this week with just a lot of games not mattering. There being possible rotation out there for players. So I think there's a situation where that could be the case with the receivers. Like you see so much lumped here together and no one really sort of separates. Like the top four are a bit separated from everyone else, but you look down here, like there are so many people between like 6 and 9 points that you can really just sort of spray in this area and find differentials.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
All right, moving over to the defensive side of things. Same points for me. Just spread it. I don't have a great opinion on the defenses because you're generally going to want to spread it out. You generally want to give yourself a chance to get the best defense, but so many of them could end up being the best defense on a given week. Is that still your thought process on the defensive position?
Yeah, definitely. And we'll have to take a look at clean up the projected ownership on defense, because I think they'll probably end up being 3 defenses that stand out. So like 3 of the games we have 7-1 teams against, or we have 3 1-7 teams playing on this slate. So all of the defenses that are opposing them are probably going to garner some ownership. So it could be a situation where Tampa Bay and New Orleans defense become a bit under-owned. I think those will probably get pushed down. I will clean those up and push New Jersey and Birmingham up a bit, just because of the offenses they're going against. But yeah, one of those 3 defenses and the big favorites are probably fine for cash. And then in terms of tournaments, spread it around. I wouldn't mix in too much of say like Michigan or Houston. Houston's probably my least favorite. That's one defense I might just X out, just because I think Birmingham goes super run heavy and just plows them, and there's not many opportunities for them to produce defensively. But like a Pittsburgh defense, definitely fine taking chances on them. We've seen Cookus throw some interceptions. They'll should have a higher pass rate than the other 2 favorites. So yep, it's defense. Just play them smartly.
Yeah, for sure. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Alex, is there anything that you want to touch on that you think we may be missed this week?
No. Tournament sizes are shrinking a bit, but I still think there's like a 30K, 10K to first. So there's some money out there to be won. We'll be updating projections, ownership, and finishing up tags in the next day. We have a Friday kickoff, I believe. So yeah, good luck, everybody.
For sure. Yeah, and for those wondering, we are recording this on Thursday morning. So anything after Thursday morning, that would be new news that we did not have when recording. So if you see it then, make sure you adjust appropriately.
And actually, Saturday is the first kickoff, Saturday at 1 p.m. So
there you
have a whole nother day tomorrow to get everything cleaned up and get your lineup set.
There you go. And then we will be back next week for you guys. And then that is the end of the regular season. I'm not sure if we'll be back during the playoffs. There's really only the 2 games, the 1 week, and then the championship game. So I don't know yet what our playoff schedule, if there will be a show during then. I will let you guys know next week on that front. So good luck to everyone on this week, and we will see you guys next week. For Sean, I'm Alex. Good luck, everyone.